What's up, Giants fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And first off, I want to quickly apologize for the background today. So, my brother got married this weekend, a lot of busy times, but I do want to talk about the bye week and the fallout from the New England game. Giants are now 2-11, losing their seventh straight game of the season. We'll get into that. First off, folks, make sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. So, Giants lose to the Patriots 33-15 on Monday Night Football. 2-11, not where we want to be. Big Blue loses their seventh straight game, and they are now 0-8 on the road this season, and they extend their franchise record 13-game losing streak on the road. Now, I want to say I think Drake May is an outstanding young quarterback, but the Giants' defense as a whole was horrific in this game. Drake May went 24-31 for 282 yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Charlie Bolin, first game as the interim defensive coordinator. I don't think he did a great job. Again, tough spot to be in, so I'm not going to fault him too much. I did see some changes on the field. Obviously, Abdul Carter got benched again, so not great. He's starting to look like he is a troublesome first-round pick. And the Patriots outgained the Giants 395 to 239. Definitely a sight for a concern. And offensively, we turn the page towards Jackson Dart returning from his 2-week absence with a concussion. He went 17-24 for a $139 and 1 touchdown. Was smacked out of bounds a couple times by Christian Ellis. Took way too many hits for a guy who just had a concussion. Giants offense definitely struggled this week, but you can't really fault Jackson Dart too much. Again, he's working with limited weapons. He's doing the best he can as a rookie. You know, he's made some good reads and good throws down the football field. But all in all, it's definitely a wash of a season for the New York Giants. At this point, you're just trying to develop young talent further and get them better for next season. On the ground for the Giants, Devin Singletary had 12 rushes for 68 yards and a score, 3 catches for 34 yards. So he had over 100 yards from scrimmage again. That's the second time he's done that this year. Unfortunately, the reason why that happened is because Tyrone Tracy got carted off with a bruised hip. Giants are obviously on a bye this week. I'm not sure if Tracy will play on Sunday. But, yeah, it'll be left to be seen what happens there against, I believe the Giants play the Washington Commanders in Week 15. Also, Gunnar Olszewski got smacked. He got carted off against his old team with a concussion on a lost fumble. I believe the hit was also delivered by Christian Ellis on that play. While I do think Ellis is a dirty player, these are legal hits, unfortunately, under the NFL rulebook. It is what it is. I think Jackson Dart needs to do a better job protecting himself. But the Gunnar Olszewski one, I mean, that was a dirty hit, inexcusable there from Christian Ellis. Andrew Thomas is one guy on the offensive line I want to talk about who has done a phenomenal job this season. When he plays, the offensive line unit plays remarkably well. This year, in every game that he's played, he's only allowed 1 sack, 2 quarterback hits, and 8 pressures. That is astronomically good. Now, I talked about the defense before in terms of trying to limit Drake May. They were unable to do that, especially with Drake May playing with 2 backup offensive linemen. I thought they would have did a better job. Zaire Barnes, young player that I want to talk about, had his first career sack, led the Giants with 13 tackles and that 1 sack. And then Dane Belton also had a sack in this game, you know, playing for the injured Tyler Nubin. So, you know, there are guys on the football field that are playing well. And Abdul Carter, despite getting benched for disciplinary reasons, despite him saying shit happens in a post-game interview, not a big fan of that, but it is what it is. It's PR. Got his first full sack as a pro. So I definitely want to give him some credit there, overcoming that adversity and getting a sack. I think with better coaching and personnel around him, Abdul Carter will definitely be better outside of his positional unit. Obviously, the personnel in the edge room is phenomenal. Outside of that, though, it is lacking on the defensive side of the ball. Also, one huge takeaway from this game is the Giants' special teams unit and their kicker position. Younghoe Koo kicked the turf on a field goal attempt. Honestly, I have never seen any kicker do that in my 24 years of watching football. And he blamed the punter, Jamie Gillen, in a post-game interview with the press. saying the ball kind of slipped out at the bottom, so it was moving. I was not able to kick through the ball. Sounds like an excuse for a washed up kicker who was on the back end of his career, might not get another opportunity after this. I remember in years like 2018, 2019, where Koo was drilling kicks. Unfortunately for him, his career might be cut short. His fall off needs to be studied. He's hooked kicks with Atlanta. He has just not looked good since becoming the kicker of the Giants, and these struggles have predated that tenure. Also, other news: the Green Bay Packers claim Jordan Riley, or they sign him, excuse me, off the Giants practice squad. Jordan Riley, former day 3 pick for Joe Schoen. Uh, Again, he was not elevated for any games this season, so I'm not surprised that a team took a chance on him here. He has started a couple games in the past for the Giants. And with that, the big news for the coaching staff this week is this year, following the Giants, it's basically a soap opera, right? It's like, who's going to get fired this week? We saw Brian Daboll back in week 10. We saw Shane Bowen. And now Bryan Cox, assistant defensive line coach, is gone. I'm going to be honest with you. I never liked this hire to begin with. The Giants are the worst team in the NFL in stopping the run. And we know it's not Andre Patterson's fault. Andre Patterson is a guy who I think is an exceptional defensive line coach. But somebody had to bite the bullet for this. Bowen already did. They sucked again. And now it's Bryan Cox. They're beginning to run out of scapegoats. Now, let's move on to the big one here. Joe Schoen. Joe Schoen held a press conference early this past week, basically trying to save face and say, hey, it's not good enough. And the reporters tried to get him to elaborate on that and say a little more, because the reality of the fact is the Giants are 3-22 in their last 25 games with Schoen as the general manager, 5-25 in their last 30. Since becoming GM, they are 5-17-1 against the NFC East, 2-14 against Dallas and Philly, 20-43-1 overall, and they've been the first team in the NFL eliminated from the playoffs in each of the last 2 seasons. And this season, the Giants are 0-5 against teams not currently in the playoffs. So this is not the standard for New York Giants football. I'm sick and tired of it. We thought this was a change of culture when they hired him and Brian Daboll. It has been everything but that. You can blame a lot of different things, how they were put in a tough position. But the reality of the NFL is if you are not winning games consistently, you are going to be talked about in some capacity in terms of job security and what it might be. Also, Abdul Carter is basically sleeping through his rookie season. Lawrence Taylor even sent him a message to wake up. In Hard Knocks, there was a clip of him slouched back in the seat. I think it was a candid shot where he was more just looking up at the wall, and everyone perceived it as him sleeping. While I don't think he was sleeping in that clip, I'd have to go back and watch the full episode. We know he has been sleeping through, some mandatory team events this season, which is definitely a cause for concern, especially somebody that was the number 3 overall pick. Another reason to support the potential firing of Joe Schoen. Evan Neal, Jalen Hyatt, Deontay Banks are nowhere to be found. These are 3 premium draft picks by Joe Schoen. 2 first-rounders. One of them they traded up for. 2 of these guys they traded up for, 1 in the first round. Neal was taken with the 7th overall pick in 2022. The Giants traded up for Jalen Hyatt in 2023 in the 3rd round, and they traded up for Deontay Banks in the 1st round in 2023. And he also mentioned that he would not make the same mistake twice. Obviously, I do think he has improved as a GM since taking this job. I think he's done a good job trade. I love what he did with Brian Burns. I love he brought back Isaiah Hodgins, but you could argue the Hodgins thing as a compensation for the lack of depth addressed in the draft and free agency at wide receiver. The run defense has been terrible all 4 years. They have not invested in run-stuffing players in terms of defensive tackles and linebackers. They went out, they signed Roy Robertson Harris. He has not been productive. Raheem Nunez-Roches is on the wrong side of 30. He's been serviceable, but not great. Micah McFadden's been out the whole year. You signed Bobby Okereke, but you've had 4 years to get depth at the linebacker position. You took bust draft picks in Darius Muasau and Darian Beavers. right? Unacceptable. These are all reasons that support the potential firing of Joe Schoen. Now, if he stays as the GM, I'm not going to flip out like some people are. I do think there is some value to keeping in Joe Schoen, but ultimately the negatives outweigh the positives, and I do think Joe Schoen should be fired at the end of the season, especially if we want to get the best head coach in here, a guy like a Chris Shula, or we'll see what happens with the Steelers, but potentially even a Mike Tomlin. Folks, let me know what you think in the comments section below. Do you think that Joe Schoen should be fired? What do you make of the Giants bye week? How about Younghoe Koo's comments? Definitely some interesting stuff and drama to talk about on this week's episode of the New York Football Giants. Appreciate you all watching as always. Happy December, by the way. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.